Welcome to today's live training. Today's going to be Monday, August 3rd, 2026, and 8 p.m. Eastern time. So you know this is actually live. I got the watch going right over here, guys. So if you're watching this live, what I want you to do is comment live. You should have access to our YouTube stream below. And just so you know, there's not going to be a replay. So if you do not think you can make it, I would suggest you cancel your plans and you stay an extra few minutes, because we're going to go over just value, how to build this business on your own with us, whatever you want to do. So comment live below just so we can see who's actually here. Make sure it's actually not some bots going in, and then we go straight into the training, guys, right? So that being said, guys, I'm super excited. So, and the reason why is because this is probably going to be one of the biggest opportunities of 2026. And obviously, as you know, no one's even talking about it. And, we look back in my business experience, starting, Bitcoin ATMs, credit card processing, ATMs, etc. And I look back and I say, nothing had the biggest opportunity like this and the amount of businesses available compared to what we're going to talk about tonight. So we're going to be speaking for about 45 minutes maximum. We're going to end at a hard stop at 9 p.m. Eastern time. So get ready, take some notes, and let's get started. So I look at this business, guys, and I have to take a few years back, all right? And I think I'm like dating myself. So I want you to picture that it's 1998, okay? There's this new device, stupid little device, right? And it actually lets you pay. You can use your savings account, your checking account to pay at a store with this little piece of plastic. Now, people are looking at you like you're crazy. Like, what are you talking about? Really? Merchants are laughing at you. Like, really? Yeah, we're just gonna use this piece of plastic to pay. Like, why? I already have cash. Why the heck would I use this thing? So little did they know, as much as we want to say hindsight's 2020, little did they know at that moment there was a shift happening. And it was whether they liked it or not. It was a freight train coming and you had to step out. Like, the only difference was you decided to get in early, right? Quote unquote early. And what do I mean? Well, you decided that, hey, I'm going to place these devices. I'm going to charge a small percentage and I'm going to let it compound. I'm going to let it compound over the 6 months, a year, 2 years, etc. And realistically, it's not slowly, because that's the first thought you have when you hear compound. You think, oh man, it's going to take decades, but it's actually rapidly. And here's the reason why. Because behind the scenes, this is what's actually happening. You place that device at location number one. You're charging a small percentage, right? Really small, and you're making only $200 a month. Let's be realistic. Back then, yeah, it covers probably your whole family's food for the year, but nowadays it only covers your gas. That's location number one. Then we get to location number two, which is $500. Then we get to location number three, and this is a portfolio building, which is $1,100 a month. Then we get to location number five, which is just another $1,250 a month. We get to location 10. So your entire portfolio is making you just above $3,000 a month. And again, it's not the sexiest business, but it's residual. But then you fast forward a few years. And all of a sudden you realize, wait a second, my portfolio's doing pretty well. But here's the kicker. You have no inventory. You have no maintenance. You have no employees. You have no headaches. Sounds great, right? Except now it's 2026 and every single thing is changing again. So I want to welcome you to today's live training. We're going to cover the big industry shift happening in 2026 that some of the biggest financial institutions are taking advantage of, but again, no one's paying attention to. So before we get started, I've got one simple question. Have you ever seen a business accepting crypto as payment? I want you to comment yes if you have, comment no if you haven't. And I'll give you a second just to give you some opinions. But just comment yes if you have and comment no if you have not, right? If you've ever seen a business accepting crypto as payments, okay? And the results typically surprise me. Most of the time it's going to be a no. A lot of times we do have a yes, but it really depends. Now, the reason I say this is because no matter what your answer is, if the number you can count, like you can actually remember that number, that is the opportunity.
Because you got to think to yourself, why is it that the thing stood out to you? Usually it comes down to the fact that what? It's because there's not a lot of businesses doing it. So what I want to do is break down this industry that is described from the 90s and what it's looking like today and why it matters to you now. So right now, credit card processing business, the industry itself, you're talking about paying with credit cards, Apple Pay, etc. It's about $150 billion. And these are just fees. Like when you swipe your card, these are the fees that are getting charged across the US. Small, 2, 3, 2.5%. And you don't think it adds up. We start realizing the compounding effect. And you've been paying this entire life. But here's the thing. This is over 30 million American businesses. Every single one of them, they accept payments, obviously. Typically, they're accepting card payments. You start seeing like, wait a second, there's a lot of volume. There's a lot of opportunity. But the problem is they're a little more saturated because if we're going back to 1998, over 28 years ago, you start realizing there's a little competition that was able to lay down the flag a little. The difference is fewer than 1 in 100 accept crypto. So think about that for a second. The millions of businesses, the hundreds that you've been to personally that don't accept it. The same reason why it stood out to you was because why? You see it's an opportunity. So then we start talking about the amount of people that actually own crypto. And as of August 2026, we're looking at just over 600 million people. Now, the reason I bring this up is because we start looking at comparisons. We have the amount of people that have crypto and the amount of people that are accepting it in their stores. And you start realizing that's for every 93 people, there's only one business accepting. So you start thinking to yourself, imagine you're at a stadium and you have water bottles for sale and you're the only one available for thousands of people. You start realizing how this becomes a massive opportunity. So we start looking at stats, and this just came out in January, by the way. This was a recent survey. Essentially, 9 out of 10 merchants that were surveyed get asked, hey, do you accept crypto as payments? And remember, about 70 to 80% of them don't accept it anymore. Now, the only objection, the concern, the hiccup, the roadblock that pops up is how? Because it's not if, as we know. That's the reason why we're here. It's not if, it's how. And the reason why is because nobody's actually came in to show them. Think about it. Everyone's doing the same lock and step. The parent news, crypto prices going up, crypto prices going down, we're going to war, whatever it is, and no one's focusing on the infrastructure. But there's actually a few businesses that are. You've probably seen Walmart. You've seen Shopify. You've seen PayPal. These are some businesses you know. Would it surprise you to know that they actually have gone all in on crypto payments? You know Square, the little device, the handheld device you see at coffee shops, you see at barber shops, etc. They went all in as of last year. So what you want to do is you actually want to watch what they're building, not what they're saying. And one thing that might surprise you, Detroit, it's a city in and of itself, they accept crypto for their taxes. So if you have major cities, if you have major businesses, multi-million-dollar businesses, if you have investors, if the government, you have all the industries pivoting, but no one talking about it, you start realizing it's a powder keg. It's an explosion waiting to happen. Because when it comes down to it, the one thing holding us back right now from the explosion is one simple signature from our government. I'm not saying you can't do this. We've been scaling this since 2025, but it takes one thing to be that light, the lighter that strikes the fuse. Who here has heard of Steak and Shake? A little burger chain, few different states. They're pretty well known. So with crypto payments, the number one question that gets popped up is like, who's gonna even pay? Like, who's gonna pay with Bitcoin, Ethereum? Like, what are you doing? Well, would it surprise you to know that one of the biggest burger chains did a little experiment? They said, hey, you know what? We're gonna start accepting crypto at our locations. Not all of them. We're gonna start testing it out. So basically, they had 2 different locations. Location number 1, normal payments, just like that. Location number 2 was accepting crypto payments. Now, the one thing that they found, which blew everyone's mind, this is from last year, by the way, was the ones that accepted Bitcoin had 15% more revenue. Now, I know, boring numbers, you think like, well, what's that matter? Here's the thing. What that means is they had a dramatic increase in the amount of people that started paying with crypto. So what's that mean for you? It comes down to opportunity. Why? Well, think about it like this, right? If you have burger joints, if you have jewelry stores, if you have car dealerships, if you have investment services, etc., starting to accept this, you start realizing how the momentum starts to continue. Because when you place something just like this at that business, what ends up happening is they say, hey, you accept crypto? How do you do it? And if you're the operator ready to place it, you start realizing how you have that compounding effect like I just described from 1998 till now. So, quick question. Based on what I've described so far, how does this feel from a realism perspective? We have one, we're like, yeah, this is just hype. And you have 10, we're like, this is an absolute no-brainer. I just want to get your opinion. Do we think, hey, you know what? This makes sense, or absolutely, this is more conjecture, right? And the reason why is because ultimately it comes down to information to make decisions, right? Now, seeing some comments, getting, it's usually the mids, it's like the 6s, the 7s, the 8s. So I got a question for you. How many of you guys want to see an actual payment, right? Now, the reason why is because ultimately, let's just be realistic, it's an online space. And what I found is, a lot of times you'll have somebody showing something, you're like, I don't know if this is real, it's just theory. So what I ended up doing was said, hey, you know what? Let's connect one of these things lives. Let's show exactly what it looks like. And the reason why is because as I start going to different businesses to do this, what I found was that the easiest way to get them to actually want to work with me, really simple. I just show them what it looks like and they say, this is a no-brainer. So essentially what this looks like is actually really, really simple. You're going to have a device just like this. It looks just like a credit card reader. You know why? I'm going to talk about this in a second because there's something inside. So I'm going to go to a local business, whether it's a grocery store, a liquor store, a car dealership, whatever, it doesn't matter. All the businesses qualify. Talk to the business owner and ask them like, hey, why don't you accept crypto payments? And what ends up happening is one of a few answers. Like, I didn't know I could. Nobody offered it to me. I didn't know people paid, whatever. It's always the same information. So then what ends up happening, really simple put, is I show them how it works. And what do you think is the most common question? It's, well, I don't want to accept crypto. I don't want to hold Bitcoin. I got to pay my employees. I got to pay for inventory. I got to buy more things. And when you explain to them that it goes from crypto to cash instantly, it becomes a no-brainer. It's literally like coming to somebody and saying, hey, why don't you accept Apple Pay? I'm like, well, of course I'm going to do that. And that's what's actually happening. So I'm going to place a device just like this. A customer is going to come in and they decide, hey, you know what? I'm going to pay in crypto. Obviously, there's different reasons. We break that down in another training, but they decide they're going to do that. So all I do is enter in the amount they're going to pay. Let's just say $100, which is not that much when you think about it. They're going to choose the type of crypto that they actually pay in. So some of the more common ones we look at, Bitcoin, Ethereum, USDC, et cetera. If you're a crypto nerd, you know what I'm talking about. All they're going to do is scan a QR code, just like this. They scan the QR code, the payment goes through, the merchant gets a receipt immediately, just like this. And then what ends up happening is they get paid just like normal. And when they see the transaction happen, because I always demo this live for different business owners, it just becomes a no-brainer. And then you start talking about referrals, which is something we'll talk about in the future. So it's a pretty simple process. But what ends up happening is we start to overcomplicate it. But when you really show it and you say, hey, this is it, you're literally just adding another payment method and it's not competing with anything you have. The most common thing I hear is, that's it. Like, it's super simple. It sounds like a franchise. It sounds like just another payment option. And that's why it becomes so easy to add in. And when I break down that they instantly get paid, what ends up happening is it just becomes a no-brainer. And it's like you're providing an iPhone to them. So then you start talking about features, because the next question is like, well, again, like, why do they want this? Well, how many of you guys have heard of chargebacks? So what ends up happening, you probably see this on social media. Somebody comes in, they get a nice burger. They say, this is phenomenal. And then the next day they say, I never bought that. It plagues small businesses and it kills them. But once you start breaking down the logical reasons why this makes sense, it becomes more and more of a no-brainer. Now, how do you come in? Well, essentially, you become a partner. You partner with these businesses, just like the same person would have done in the 90s with credit cards. You help them accept crypto payments. And for that, you get paid a percentage. But the best part is, and this is where I really learned cash flow leading into equity really mattered. The best part is you can actually sell your accounts, because as you start building up your portfolio, location number 1, location number 2, location number 3, and you start building up residual income that you don't have to work for, works for you while you sleep, the business is running without you, you start realizing how you own something. You have equity. It's almost like a rental property. So you're able to sell it years later. Now, the one thing is this, right? We started scaling this business in 2025, end of 2024. We actually made a really big mistake, okay? As we started going to these business owners kept asking like, hey, well, what about credit cards? Like, do you do credit card processing? And as you know, I came from the credit card processing space. And we just would pass on these accounts. We say, yeah, no, we don't do that. We just do crypto payments. And then it got to a point where we said, wait a second, why aren't we accepting credit cards too? And that's when I mentioned this device looks a little familiar to you. Well, we're the only ones that came out with an all-in-one device. And what's that mean? Really simple. You go to a business and you say, hey, why aren't you accepting crypto payments? That business owner says, well, I didn't know, etc. You show them how it works, you show them how it doesn't compete, and you sign them up right then and there. Really simple, 15 minutes. Then what ends up happening, he says, hey, you know what? How does it work for your credit card processing? Like, what do you mean? It's like, well, you're happy? Is it working out, etc.? Like, well, I've been doing this for a few years, etc. I was like, what if I was able to bring it all together? It's like, well, I don't know, etc. I was like, well, that same device that I literally just placed that accepts crypto, I can literally just do the credit cards there, and I can meet, beat, or save your rates. So what ends up happening is business owners say, yeah, it's a no-brainer, because you're not coming in with the same door-to-door pitch. You're not selling them. You're literally being a consultant. You're providing them an opportunity. You're saying, hey, I'm going to take you into the next generation of payments. And for you doing that, I'm going to reward you by allowing you to take credit cards also. So you're able to double dip and have 2 businesses in one. So if this is enough for you and you say, hey, you know what? This makes sense. I kind of want to learn more information. All you got to do is click the link below. It's div-shift/book. And you can book a team call with one of our team members, break down how this works, go over your local assessment. Before everybody else, let's break down the business a little more, right? So with that being said, we kind of went over the overview of the business, but let's get a little more tactical. And when I say let's get tactical, what I mean by that is let's break down step by step, like the actual basics of the business, okay? Because what I found is as long as you know how something works, you can decide if it makes sense for you or not, okay? So when we're talking about this business specifically, there's a few fundamental steps that you have to do when launching this, okay? So the first thing is actually going to be you got to form your business, right? Really simple. It's kind of overstated because most people don't really pay attention to it. But the reason why is because you also are in like the payment industry. So again, what ends up happening is you have residual income, you have ownership, you have equity over something. So if you want to sell it later, you actually want to have that entity. So from there, once you form that business entity, where it's an LLC, corporation, C Corp, it doesn't matter. You have that set up. Then you want to get your business bank account. So business bank account, super simple. The reason why we say this is because ultimately you want to be able to separate your finances. If this is your first time running a business, maybe this doesn't seem as important. But at the end of the year, when you start realizing that, hey, the government wants you to save on your taxes, you start realizing the benefits. And if you don't know what bank, we typically stick to bigger banks like Chase, Wells Fargo, doesn't matter, or online banks. And the reason why is because simplicity scales and complexity fails, meaning that don't overcomplicate it trying to find that fancy bank. Literally just sign up for the bank account, get it up and running so you can secure as many accounts as possible. And then from there, what we want to do, really simple, is partner with a back-end processor. Because as much as I'm describing like the device, the technology, etc., you have to realize that you actually need somebody to do it for you because it's regulated and all these good things behind it. So there's a few things that I like to look for whenever I'm going to partner with one. The biggest thing, and it's really simple, is going to be customer service. And it's such an overlooked thing, but you have to ask yourself, how many times have you been on a flight where you get a little frustrated because they're taking too long to board or to deport? Or your luggage that's lost, or there's turbulence. It's the exact same thing with businesses. Whenever there's these hiccups, you start losing these relationships, and it starts turning into a death by 1,000 paper cuts behind the scenes. And I know this because after signing up thousands of credit card accounts and losing some, I realized it was always the customer service, especially in 2026. So we want to make sure there's good customer service. The other thing is we want to make sure there's simplicity. Why? Well, what ends up happening is we think that we want to have the fanciest technology, but that's actually not the case. Okay. When you think about it from a business owner's perspective, they are dealing with customers every single day. They don't want fancy. They want simple. They want the customer to come in, them to pay, and that's it. They don't think about it. So we tend to stick to bigger payment technology providers. And the reason why is because, number one, there's the support. They work with big banks, et cetera. So we want to make sure that the technology that's being used is literally dumb enough for a third grader to use it. As much as you don't think about it, what ends up happening is you start realizing that when you're stressed out and you're running a business, you don't want to think about extra stuff. And then from there, we look at locations. So one of the more common things that are overlooked is the locations, because we think, hey, you know what? I'm just going to talk to some random people. But it's 2026. Let's be realistic. You don't want to go door to door. I'm lazy. I don't want to go to door and try to sell somebody. So what I found is you want to aim for the low-hanging fruits. And what I mean by that is really simple. All you want to do is ensure that you're going to go for the yeses, because there's thousands of businesses around you, but why spend the extra time? I tend to dedicate maybe 2 to 3 hours a week for this maximum, because ultimately I just don't want to spend time. I want this to be passive. I want to be behind the scenes. So I tend to look for businesses that are going to say yes. So what are the indicators of businesses that are going to say yes? Well, we start looking for businesses that run into chargebacks. They charge a lot. They have international customers. They have younger customers. They have people that say, hey, you know what? If you're able to incentivize me, I will pay for that. So we look at car dealerships. We look at jewelry stores, furniture stores, smoke shops, grocery stores, liquor stores, a lot of the local businesses. And the other factor I look for is actually going to be if I can actually get a hold of the business owner. Because think about it like this. I've had hundreds of people reach out to me, clients, and say, hey, you know what? I want to talk to this franchise, which is great. Maybe you want to sign up 7-Eleven. But you have to ask yourself, have you ever been in a corporate environment and the bureaucracy that comes in, and you have Jeff and Pam and Chris that all have to approve of something, which ends up taking longer and longer and longer. So in that exact same time, you could sign up 10 different businesses around you, whether it's some liquor stores. The reason why is because you have a very high likelihood of that business owner actually being in there, because it's a smaller business. So the trick that we found to be the most successful, and that's why you see back-to-back accounts being secured, is we literally go after low-hanging fruit. We take the lazy man approach, because while everyone else is focusing on like, hey, fancy, I want to have e-com, etc., we do. So we tend to go for the easy wins first. And then what ends up happening is you start to realize the niche you want to focus on, because maybe you have experience in corporate sales. Maybe you're a stay-at-home mom. Maybe you're a police officer and you're used to talking to people. You start to realize what are the conversations that are easy for you to have yeses with, and you start to continue to focus on those businesses, and that's when the momentum kicks in. So once you've locked in locations, the next thought process is scaling, because let's be realistic. Who here is starting this business just to get 1 or 2 accounts making like $300 a month? I know I'm not. At the end of the day, you have that secret number in your minds, whether it's 5,000 a month, 8,000 a month, whatever, where you say, hey, if I hit this number, I'm going to go all in. So the way we do that is we focus on scaling. So typically, the tried and true method that I found is really simple. You sign up a business right off the bat. You have visibility showing that you're actually accepting crypto payments. That leads to more people wanting to work with you. You have an online brand, and then you run ads, you have posts to attract more and more business owners. Because the question you have to ask yourself is this: if you haven't seen businesses accept crypto, that means that business owner has no idea what to do. So if you're the first person that comes to them, whether digitally or in person, that says, hey, I have the solution for you, they're going to reach out to you. So you want to have online presence. So what we focused on completely has been online presence, because number one, we just want to drive to businesses a little more lazy, but it becomes easier and easier to sign up. So got a question for you. Who here wants to see a step-by-step process that we actually follow to a T to make sure we're up and running within 14 days? What I want you to do is comment residual below. Comment residual if you want to see the brand new step-by-step process we follow to get up and running. So it's actually really, really simple. So this is what I call our residual scaling system. It took thousands of iterations across the US, Canada, London, and a few other places to perfect this and get it to where it is today. And it's really simple. It's a 3-stage approach. I look at it from the foundations to scaling to equity and exit. And this is what I mentioned, where you want to build up the cash flow and decide if you want to sell later. So I say this because ultimately you got to keep things as simple as possible. So what we do is we focus on advisory services. And what do I mean? Well, essentially what we found is as long as you have the foundations and you have the one-on-one support, you can actually get this up and running really quickly. So you have a dedicated growth advisor. And essentially what ends up happening is you have a US advisor that says, hey, this is what you need to do. These are the next 2 steps, not 5, not 10. These are the 2 steps you need to follow to be up and running in the next 14 days. From there, what ends up happening is we decided, hey, you know what? What is the next reason why you fail? You don't have the equipment. You don't have the things you need to be successful, whether it's marketing materials, education, etc. So we end up sending you a business starter kit. And the reason why is because if you're able to just have everything ready to rock, think of it as like an IKEA box where it's your whole living room in a box, you start realizing it becomes easier and easier, especially with your busy life. From there, what we decided to do was have a step-by-step, super simple 3rd grade level program that covers the basics. Why? Because you're busy. And what ends up happening is you need mobile accessible information. So as you're signing up deals in your free time, whether you're stopping at the gas station, etc., it's easily accessible to you. From there, what we do is we game plan, because ultimately, if you're not planning, you're planning to fail. Let's be realistic. So what ends up happening is we do an assessment. We have different AI technology, software providers. We look at your area and we see, hey, this is the biggest bang for your buck you're going to get for your location. You want to target these 6 spots. They're going to say yes. And then after that, we have 4 more ready for you. So we do a one-on-one assessment. From there, what ends up happening is, again, like I mentioned, brand being the secret of 2026, is we focus on building out your brand. And what's that mean? Well, essentially what ends up happening is we set up your website, we set up your CRM, we set up all the automations, because as people start to reach out to you, you don't need to do the busy work. It's not worth your time. So we set up technology to do everything for you. So as the businesses say, hey, Jeff, hey, Chris, hey, get them, I'm really interested in getting started. It's not even you responding until they say, you know what, let's talk in person. So once the foundations are set up, you're ready to rock and you can sign up your own locations. But we used a whiteboard and we said, hey, you know what? How would you fail? And we literally just crossed off every single bullet point and reverse engineered it. So what ends up happening is we find and secure your first few locations for you. Why? It's like training wheels. What ends up happening is you say, hey, you know what? Maybe a little uncomfortable, maybe you don't have the time, whatever. So we have integrated call centers across multiple continents, speak multiple languages. And what we do is we find your first few local locations. Why? Because if you're able to see how it works, it's easy to just copy and paste, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So once you have that up and running, what ends up happening is what we found is you have questions. You want to network, you want to see other business owners being successful also, different lawyers, federal agents, stay-at-home families, it doesn't matter. So we end up having mastermind advisory calls where we talk about language learning models, automations, finding locations, hiring virtual assistants to do the work for you, anything you can think of. But the biggest thing, it comes down to your network. And what I mean? Well, essentially what ends up happening is if you're able to see what's working in California, in New York, in South Carolina, where it's not listed anywhere, you start realizing how you can literally just copy and paste what's happening and do the exact same thing. So we just give you the secrets because ultimately, let's be realistic, it's in our benefit also. From there, what ends up happening is we've gone all in on AI. Here's the reason why. At the end of the day, 2026 has completely shifted. AI's taken over. So we just embraced it. So what we did was we have the most advanced technology where we find your locations for you. We analyze it. We scrape all the data online. We find their social media, do everything. And it's almost like you're the FBI. You're able to find that local business that's open when you're available, whether it's Sunday night, whether it's Tuesday morning, it doesn't matter. We have it automatically set up for that. Find the information of the business owner, get their social media, get what they're interested in. So you literally go in there as if you're their best friend and you leave with the yes. From there, what ends up happening is this. One of the most common questions we get is like, hey, what if we want to run ads? So obviously we spent millions on ads over the last few years and we realized, hey, why don't we just use our operating system and use it as the engine to scale your business? So what we do is we run your ads. We say, hey, you know what? Again, don't go in person. Sign these up remotely. So we start having businesses reach out to you. So when you're on your computer, when you're at work, at the job, whatever, you start having people reach out to you and say, hey, I have this business I'm ready to rock. Hey, I'm interested in learning more about what you do. So it becomes easy yeses versus, again, we're not trying to sell anything because it's a waste of time. And then from there, this is going to be my favorite part, is equity. So what ends up happening is you're able to build a team. If you want or run it solo, it doesn't matter. But as you start building out these accounts and start building residual income, you realize you have a cash flowing asset. So we're the only ones with the digital payment marketplace. And what's that mean? As you secure accounts, you do a little sweat equity, as we call it in real estate. You're able to sell that account for typically about 18 to about 30-ish times multiples. So if you're making $1,000 a month, which again is not a lot, you're able to sell it for $18,000 to $36,000. Now you're probably asking like, well, why would I even sell it? Well, life expenses pop up. You decide to move, you decide to buy a car, you get a down payment, etc. When you have the system built out, you have the engine running behind you, and you say, hey, you know what? I can easily sign up 10 more businesses. You realize there's other people that don't want to do any work whatsoever, and you can charge them a premium for it. So it's a pretty simple process. Now, obviously, high level overview, really simple, etc. But our process has been proven. Now, I wanted to keep today's training as short as possible because, as you know, that's going to be 8 p.m. I just wanted to go over education, and I want to do something a little special. So if this sounds like something you said, hey, you know what? I want to learn a little more, right? Again, no pressure. We've been growing like crazy. I'm in our office in Colombia right now. We just expanded to Latin America. Well, I'm going to do something a little special, right? So obviously, CEO, founder, we're in a team. We have a big team. We've been expanding. But I want to do something for you. So if you're saying, hey, you know what? I just want to learn more to see if this makes sense in my area, meaning you have a city specifically within the US or Canada that you want to expand this to, I'm doing one thing. So I'm going to open up 4 slots. This isn't urgency or anything. If I show you my calendar, you know what I'm talking about. I'm going to open 4 slots. They're roughly about 45 minutes each. Don't take these calls. I have an entire team, an advisory team that does this for you. Because what I want to do is be able to answer questions, figure out one of the most common questions, create more content, create more YouTube content for this. And that's going to be the advantage. And then if it makes sense, awesome. And if it doesn't, at least you had some education. So if you're interested and you want to have a founder call, literally directly with me, not with the sales rep, nothing. I'm going to open up 4 slots. I'm going to break down exactly what we do. I'm going to use our internal systems to analyze your zip codes, plural, meaning that if you have your home zip code, your work zip code, you travel, whatever, we're going to look at the market feasibility over there. What I want you to do is click the link below. It's in the comments. It's in the link under you. You can apply for a call with myself if you're qualified. And what ends up happening is I'm going to break down everything for you step by step from a founder's perspective, from somebody who's run 8-figure organizations, from law enforcement, the Marine Corps, et cetera. That's going to be very realistic for you. Not the white collar approach, but the blue collar approach that's really simple. So all you need to do, click the link below. We're going to have about, I think it's 3 slots for tomorrow. I try to open up, maybe 4 if somebody didn't take it. I think somebody did. But when it comes down to it, you have to think about it like this. I suffered from this all the time, especially in law enforcement and, just getting out of the Marines, was I'd always think about things. I would just think my way into fruition. Even till today, I'll have, notepads for everything. And essentially, the one thing I found was it comes down to action. Not just jumping into something, but just getting momentum in a direction. Because when it comes down to it, success favors speed. Let's just be realistic. Those who just take action have 2 to 3 times as many things they can do in that same period that somebody else is doing the research. So if you're on the fence, you say, hey, you know what? This sounds like an interesting business. I want more information. You can take advantage, because when it comes down to it, the world's not going to slow down. The opportunities aren't going to slow down. It just comes down to if you're going to take advantage of it today. So that's it for today. Like I mentioned, down and dirty, short training, literally less than 45 minutes. If you decide you want to have a one-on-one conversation with myself, you can click the link below. If not, I'll catch you guys in the next training. Till then, enjoy the rest of the evening, guys.